and educated, trained by the Saudis and by other, in fact, when I say Saudis, let me explain. It is not Saudis as a nation. Saudis means this because in Saudi Arabia they have the center of their activity. So, but it's not necessarily the family of the king. Saudi means the Hizb ut-Tahrir, as you may have heard. Almost all of us have heard about Hizb ut-Tahrir. Hizb ut-Tahrir is an organization, underground organization of the Arabs, which stands for caliphate. Their mission is to restore Muslim caliphate, Islamic caliphate, the international Muslim empire. They profess to be peaceful. That is, we are a preaching organization. We persuade people, Muslims and others, to take Islam as the guiding principle. But now this is only a profession, shown as a peaceful organization. But Hizb ut-Tahrir has all the terrorist organizations working for it. They finance, educate, and guide organizations like Al-Akhwan, Al-Qaeda, Taliban. These are all organizations working under Hizb ut-Tahrir. Hizb ut-Tahrir will never accept the responsibility for any act of terror, but they will prepare the Muslim mind to never revolt or act against that act of terror. For example, if something happens here, or it happened in America, in 9/11, for example, you will see that no Muslim citizen in the United States will come out in a protest against it. Never. It will never happen. Muslims, if you call them, come and protest against this act of terror done by a Muslim, they will not come for it. But if you insult, not the Prophet, of course, that is a big issue, but if you insult even their one religious function, for example, you say Hajj is rubbish, that irresponsible word can agitate Muslims to come on the streets. How dare you call our pilgrimage as rubbish? That is the sensitivity of a narcissist. And this sensitivity is emotional intelligence of Muslims. But who plays on this intelligence? It is the Hizb ut-Tahrir and their trained army of prayer leaders. They are being sent everywhere to educate the Muslim youth to go back to whatever little they have lost of their narcissism. They should regain it and be fully convinced that if they have even worn a trouser, that is the corruption of their faith, and they should go back to the Arabian dress because that is the identity of a Muslim. Their names should, nobody can be James and still a Muslim, or Terry and still a Muslim. He must have an Arabian name in order to be a Muslim. And he should try to copy the Arabian dress, Arabian styles of living, everything that the Arabs do, because the target is to have the Arabian Empire in the world. That is Hizb ut-Tahrir. They openly say that they want to restore Caliphate of Islam. But of course they say it is through peaceful means that we will do it. They have in Pakistan was the product of this movement. In India, the Muslims never accepted India as their country. So they demanded, when they came to know that the Hindus, by virtue of their majority, will rule India, they said we'll have a separate homeland. So Pakistan was created. Pakistan was created simply on that, openly on that issue, that we will not live with the Hindus because they are the majority. We are not one nation, they said. We are two nations in India. For 1,000 years they ruled India, but they were then one nation. But when it came to the question of the majority rule by democracy, they found that now they will not be the rulers. They said, no, we are two nations. So, and they took a separate homeland. It was also through great violence. Remember this history of ours, that we created Pakistan after killing about 3 million people on both sides. They killed Muslims, Muslims killed Hindus and Sikhs. And so the country was created. This country has the seal of Islam. And it is so natural that this country should guard the Prophet and the religion, which has been its reason of birth. So they became more loyal to the king than the king himself. They are more loyal to Saudi system of life than the Saudis themselves are. The evidence, no demonstration in Saudi Arabia against the movie, but all demonstrations in Pakistan. Self-killing demonstrations, destroying themselves, almost bleeding with anger, and destroying their own property. That madness is because the country was created on the basis of that religion. And then the people who became in charge, they have never let the Muslims of Pakistan to think in terms of progress or development. They were all the time pulling the nation to two things: more of Islam and more of fighting against India. So we created nuclear weapons. And we, of course, Indians created nuclear weapons. And the total amount of money that we have spent, two nations of us, on the nuclear and armament development, and on our two huge armies, is equal to the capability which could have built these nations like Norway. They would have been like Norway. They could have been like United States. The amount of money that they have spent, if that money was spent on development, these nations would have been modern nations with 98% literacy, where the literacy in Pakistan, which was something like 22% on the partition time, when India and Pakistan were partitioned, has now come to 17%. And we are very hopeful that it will be 2% in the next 15 years. And we hope that by the end of this century, we shall have only Arabic, ability to understand Arabic by hearing. We will not be able to read it. But the computers are helping us. We don't need to do it. We can, the computers will come where we can speak and they obey. So it is, you are doing our work, and we are very happy that you are doing it. But we will be the masters of all the development that is done. This is the background of blasphemy, but I have not gone into the detail of the law because you know the law. It has been, you have heard about it here. Law is simple law. It says anybody who says a word of insult to the Prophet will, or to Islam, or to the institutions of Islam, will be given this punishment, this punishment, this punishment. And the punishment for insulting the Prophet was death earlier. It was death. It was life imprisonment in the earlier constitutional law. But then the court which is created in Pakistan to implement all laws in conformity with Islam, that court said that there is a flaw in this. This law is not in keeping with Islam. Islam gives you, Islam dictates that anybody who insults the Prophet will have death. So if you have given a very mild punishment of life imprisonment, so it should be rectified, and the court said, the Sharia court said it should be death penalty. The president had the Supreme Court had the power to hear the petition. I'm just finishing. But the appeal was done, but the bishop who did the appeal died before the court could hear the appeal, because the court did not find time for 17 years which was a comfortable time for the bishop to have died. So now nobody was there to pursue the appeal. So appeal finished, and now it is death penalty. That is death and fine both. These are the reasons why penalty law operates, and my last words about it are: blasphemy is the concept of punishing somebody who insults a sacred entity. Muslims, as a whole civilization, are insulting the sacred, one sacred thing, which we call human desire to survive. So, the real blasphemy at this stage of human history is being committed by us, the Muslims. We are determined to insult mankind for everything that they have achieved, and we want them to go back to medieval times. So this blasphemy should be punished, and the punishment is not kill the civilization. The punishment is take the patient by force to treatment. You will ask questions, I will answer, but I explain this point of mine. It is necessary by the World Organization, for the World Organization, UNO, and the nations of the world to create a movement, take an initiative to pressurize the governments of Muslim countries to take hold of those small minority groups that play on the emotional intelligence of Muslims. Muslims, by and large, the common man is not determined to fight against God, but they are aroused. And if you look at the small number of people who demonstrated, they, according to the latest calculations, they were 0.1 to 0.2% of the total Muslim population. But how they damaged the world peace and the mind of Muslims, that is what has to be controlled. And I have always and everywhere said that it is the job of the world community to persuade or force the Muslim governments to seriously take hold of these agitators who agitate Muslims to go beyond their common sense and misbehave, and it is that behavior which is making life difficult in every country where they go. If you do not notice, because of your great large-heartedness, and I thank you for this greatness because it inspires us, that your behavior of accommodation, your kindness to your people who come here. But I think that the effort to keep our systems intact is a genuine, a normal and correct, legitimate desire. And if the nations try to protect themselves against this emerging threat, it is not intolerance, because we do not accept everything as it is. The tolerance of belief ends where it becomes a threat to human life. And we have to limit our tolerance, not to make it violence, but to make it a voluntary action, a considered action against the emerging threat. We have to educate the Muslims by deciding that they are wrong, and we have to tell them that they are wrong. And that telling is possible through our states, our governments.